You ready? I'm ready. I'm ready. Okay. Have you ever desired to sit at the feet of a millionaire? Well, I have the honor and opportunity of interviewing one of my mentors today who just so happened to be a multimillionaire. On today, we're going to talk about mind over money. Welcome to Arise and Build. Here with your girl, Yakinea Maria. In the studio, I have none other than my mentor, attorney Antonio Spurling. How are you
I'm
doing?
doing well. How are you?
I'm wonderful and I'm excited.
I am excited as
I'm
well.
so excited to sit at your feet once again. I was just at your feet on Wednesday because you host a Kingdom Bible study called Truth
That's right.
every single Wednesday.
Correct.
So introduce yourself to our viewers.
Well, humbly stated, as you've already said, my name is Antonio Spurling.
Mhm.
I'm an attorney here in Birmingham. I've practiced for 22 years. I have an awesome privilege of being married to Marquita Spurling,
Who is awesome.
who's my wife. We have 5 children: Tyron, Kennedy, Miles, Harrison, and Carter Spurling. So we grew up in Birmingham. We grew up in the projects. I didn't grow up rich. I didn't grow up poor, but I just knew we didn't have any money. Raised by a single parent. My father was killed when I was 14. I took a very strong vested interest in the ends of the community to see the area be revitalized. And so we've been there working for a number of years now.
Okay.
And so that's part of my life's story, part of my life's assignment in various stages of it.
And so you gave like a summary version. So what is your, because you mentioned that you grew up in the projects.
Right.
You didn't know you was poor.
Right.
And I know you define, what's the difference between poor and what's the other word? Is it poor, poverty and poor in your definition?
Well,
as you define it.
I think poor is more of a state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Poverty is a position.
Economic.
Right, because the scripture says that the rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender.
Yeah.
So being poor is essentially a state of mind that someone can rule over you because you're poor.
Yeah.
And it's not so much as a disposition. I guess it is in some aspects, but it's thinking at a certain level.
Mm-hmm.
It's having low priorities of money management, having low priorities of quality decisions. It's taking money. If money is a subject we're talking about, just for the purposes of mindset over money, taking money and misusing money, not thinking that you're misusing money because you have a poor mentality or a mindset that's poor. In other words, it's lacking. It's lacking because when you think in terms of poor, that's what it by definition means. There's something that is lacking.
That's good.
And so when a person lacks a revelation, they're thinking poor.
That's good.
Because they're lacking a revelation.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can attest to that because I didn't grow up with my mom teaching me certain things. She just did the best she could because she was on her own when she was 15 years old. So do you feel like you've ever had a poor mindset?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely so.
What broke you out of that?
Well, one, because of wanting to attain wealth.
Okay.
Wealth is retention. Poor mentality is spend. Spend all. Yeah. That's the mentality of the poor. It's get a check, spend it to zero, get another check, spend it to zero, get a check, spend it to zero, make thousands, make millions, make hundreds of millions, but always go back to zero. That's a mentality of poor.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why do you feel like that is?
Because it's social conditioning. We're in a capitalistic society. Capitalism focuses on 3 things. Number 1 is ignorance. The consumer is weaker when he's ignorant, which means he may know some things and he ignores what he knows. Like I have a mortgage payment to pay. But because they lack a mentality of ownership, they may rather buy a pair of shoes than to own a house or put wheels on a car than to pay the car off before they put wheels on the car or to just rent infinitely and never own anything. That's a mentality of the poor. Yes. It's a mentality that lacks a revelation of retention is how people build wealth and brings you out of poverty.
Okay, expound on retention.
Retention means to retain, right? Yes. And so wealthy people are people who can retain financial liquidity. They can retain money, i.e. save. They can invest money, i.e. retain. They can acquire real estate and not sell. That's retention. So wealthy people know how to retain because in their mentality, they're wealthy. They're not poor. They're not setting themselves up to return to lack.
That's good.
So when they buy things, the things that they buy, they intend to retain it.
Yes.
For a duration of time until they exit the transaction at a higher price point by which they obtained it.
And I know you're going to talk to us about that. Is so good. I know you're going to talk to us about your process from going from lack to wealth.
Yes.
Okay. And because sometimes people look at you and they feel like it's just it was easy,
You
for
think?
you. Oh, people always, well, I won't say people as in just making it broad,
Okay.
but sometimes people may look, okay, how long? Because I know you and Marquita own 22 buildings now,
Correct.
right? Debt free.
Correct.
But in the beginning, you start borrowing,
Correct.
and then God shifted your mindset, and then you all start working yourself out of debt, and now everything you purchase is debt free.
Correct.
Sometimes, if we're not careful, we can look and feel like you own 22 buildings.
Mm-hmm.
I should have 22 buildings in a matter of a month, 30 days.
That's very presumptuous for someone to make that assumption, and that's understandable because that's what I was getting to as my second point.
Yeah.
Because the mentality of the poor is everything is instantaneous. Wealthy people don't think in terms of things being instantaneous. Wealthy people, the shift is moving from having extrinsic value to intrinsic values. Okay, for example. Extrinsic values says, buy the latest brands, the things that are fashionable, buy everything that's popular to other people. But intrinsic values say, no, I can wait. I can discipline myself. I can save. I can invest. I can still acquire those things. But my methodology for attainment is different because my mentality is different.
That's so good.
The objective is not different. The objective is to buy the thing or to have the money or to have the house or to have the car. But the process to attain the objective is different. That's the difference between a poor mentality and a wealthy mentality.
That's good. So what was the start? What was the genesis? What did your mentor, first of all, how did you come to meet your mentor? And what did he tell you that sowed the seed that began to?
February 15, 1986, my father had his brains blown out. And I went to the emergency room and I saw him gasping, fighting for his life. And it traumatized me because of what I saw visually. But then also, we had built a house. My father built my mother her first house in the late 70s in Wylam, which was a very dominated community by whites, Italians, and Jews. So we were one of the very few families to move into a ranch-style house, a huge house, a very nice house in Wylam, which is a neighborhood outside of Inslee. And the house was nice. It was a very nice, and it's still a nice house to this day, but it was a nice house. And we moved out of the projects. And my father would tell my mother this was the key. He was saying that one day we're gonna get you out of these projects, because we were living in North Birmingham projects. My wife says, "You never grew up in the projects." I did grow up in the projects. It was not that long, but I grew up in the projects. So long story short, I was impacted by that when he bought us a house, because I saw the vastness of what a community looked like as a young boy when I was 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, living in the projects, and everybody was tight, no air conditioning, no central heating air, people hanging their clothes outside on clotheslines, screen doors on the front, people fussing all the time about money, the milkman's being brought to the house, government cheese coming. So I'm seeing this bifurcated support system, which parents who work, right? Yeah. And a government who's helping bring cheese and milk to the door.
I remember those days.
Right. And so it wasn't traumatic to me that I understood it, but I had a revelation that something's just not, there's got to be life outside of this place.
Yes.
And so my father, who was a butcher at the time, he was a military veteran. So he was a butcher and had been in the military. He told my wife, "I'm going to buy you a house. We're going to build us a house." And he bought the land and built the house.
Wow.
Right. And so that was major, right?
Yes.
Because black men were not doing that in the 70s.
Yes.
In 78, when he bought the house, I was born in 72. So I was 5 or 6 years old when we moved to Wylam, or 7, or whatever the case was. But my point is that impacted me. And we were living in a house with central heat and air. It was like luxury. It was, I could tell a vast difference between where we had been for 5 years of my life to the late 70s, early 80s, where he was killed in 1986. But we stayed in that house 7 years before he was killed. And unfortunately, my mother and my father got a divorce when they were going through a divorce, actually when he was killed, as a matter of fact. So I started to see those variations in qualities of life. And then I started to quickly surmise in my mind, this is the quality of life I want. I don't want to be growing my family up into projects and not knocking it, but just wanting more, wanting to shift. So I think the paradigm in my mind started shifting at an early age, when I was 7, 8, 9 years of age, rather. And then when he was killed, when I was 14, I met a gentleman by the name of Mr. Isaac Ephraim. And he was one of my first mentors. And he asked me this question. He said, okay, obviously, unfortunately, your father's been killed. He's been taken away from you. And we had gone through this litigation process with Jack McNamee and his other attorney, Layla Hariyama, and a couple other lawyers who were prominent attorneys at that time. My mother hired them to represent us.
Because of that.
Right, because of the wrongful death. And so the statutory cap was $100,000. So we got the $100,000.
Was he killed by a police officer?
Yeah, he was killed by a policeman. Right. Yeah, he was shot in the back of the head by a police officer. Yeah, sitting in a car. It's crazy. But long story short, we ended up getting, after the attorney's fees, which attorney fees 50%, we had $50,000 to help pay for me to go to college. And so my mentor, who I mentioned just moments ago, Isaac C. Ephraim, who later became the best man in my wedding, he was in his 40s when I was 14, 15 when my dad was killed. And so he said, now that you have this money, or we'll get this money. I was 14, about to turn 15, or whatever the age was. I can't remember the exacts. He said, I want you to make a commitment to me. I said, what? He said, number one, he said, when you turn 19, you're going to be able to get this money. But from 14 till 19, I'm going to ask you, can you save $20 a month? And I said, we're talking about how my mindset shifts. And I'm talking about my second talking point. I said, $20 a month. He says, yeah. I said, okay. And so I was working at this grocery store in Inslee. It was Food Fair at the time, I think it was. And I was working. I was putting $20 into this AIM Constellation Growth Stock Mutual Fund. And so every month when I would see him or talk to him, he'd say, are you still doing it? I said, yeah. And so he said, well, I'm going to have the statements come to my office so I can keep an eye on it. I said, fine, that's cool, no problem.
Accountability.
Right, exactly. That's what's going with that. It's a third talking point. So wealthy people believe in accountability. Poor people may not believe in accountability. They figure it's my check, it's my money, I do what I want to with it. And that's fine because you're grown, right? You earned it, you made it, you got it. But the question is, can you retain it? Are you being coached on how to retain it? And then after retaining it, watch how I say this. How do you grow it after you've retained it?
And he's the one that led you to the stock market?
Yeah, that's where I'm going with that. So when he was telling me about these growth stock mutual funds, that was a shift in my mind. I was 16 years old. None of my friends were talking about investing. Nobody else I knew was talking about investing. But I didn't know that I was doing something that was ahead of the curve either. Okay.
At a young age.
Exactly. So I'm putting $20 a month in this mutual fund account. I'm sending these, what seemingly was like little checks or whatever the case. My mom would help me send it. And I was sending it to his office and then he would put it in the market. And from that day to this day, I've never stopped investing. Wow. I mean, I've liquidated some accounts in some years past for different reasons, move money around, that kind of thing. But I never stopped principally investing, which is a type of retention, which is what I'm getting to. Wealthy people understand it's important not only after you've made money, but to retain it. Not in a sense of greed, not in a sense of hoarding, not in a sense of not willing to share, not willing to give, but they understand as a principal revelation of any person's wealthy, you have to retain assets, and money is an asset. Real estates are assets. Stocks are assets. So if you don't have a mentality that shifts into this third dimension where you understand money must be retained, I must create a system to retain money. You can't become wealthy.
So money doesn't come first, then mindset, then money.
I could say it in that order, but you need money to apply mindset too. Okay. It's sort of like a chicken or egg conversation. In other words, we all come into contact with various amounts of money, regardless of our mindset, right? But what the wealthy figured out is, regardless of the amount, I just need to retain some of it. Whether it's 20%, 30%, 50%, whatever the percentage is, I need to retain it. So what a fool does, not saying that when a person's in poverty, they're a fool, but they may be foolish in their conduct, is their mentality does not allow them or will not conform itself to the ideology or ideation of monetary retention. Like I said, 87% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck because marketing has such a strong draw on the psychology of how people manage money.
And I guess when I said that, I was referring to, like you said, The wealthy have a mindset to retain a percentage, regardless of whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20%.
Correct.
But they have a mindset to retain it.
Correct.
So that's why I said mindset over money, because
Absolutely.
if you don't have the mindset to do, manage your money properly or
Mhm.
multiply it, whatever the case would be, then you're not going to even do it.
Mhm.
Versus just acquiring a lot of money and feel it's almost like winning a lottery. We know
Mhm.
the percentage of people who actually retain their money who win lottery is very, very, very small.
Correct.
Because they didn't have the mindset first before they actually
Right.
acquired that
Right.
money.
Remember now, the word over, I think, is a preposition.
Okay.
So it speaks of position, right? So
Mhm.
we say mindset over
Okay.
money.
Yeah.
What we're saying is a mindset that's elevated. I'm going somewhere.
Mhm.
That a mindset that's higher than the amount of money you're over.
Yeah, that's good.
So if a person has money that's higher than their mentality, that money that's above the level of their mentality, they will spend.
Yeah.
Because their mindset was not high enough over that money.
That's good.
It was not able to control the money.
Mhm.
The money started controlling making decisions.
Mm.
Dave Ramsey said it best. He says that money is 90% behavior and 10% head knowledge. You will do, an average person will do 90% of the time the same things they did with money, regardless of the amount, 90% of the time. And 10% of the time, they may think differently. Only 10% of the time. In other words, they'll have 9 transactions the same way they did it the preceding month, and only maybe 1 transaction that may be different from those other 9.
That's good.
It's like renting and renting and renting and renting and renting and renting and renting. Doesn't matter if your paycheck's 20 grand a month, 100 grand a month, 1,000 a month. That repetitive thought process starts to become dominant in that person's mentality. And it would almost take like an act of Congress or God to break them out of that mentality. Except they come into contact with someone that says, hey,
you need to.
Right.
You need to.
Right.
That's so good.
Yeah. So it's serious. So money has a psychology. I read a good book, The Psychology of Money. It's a great book. I'll give it to you when I see you on Wednesday or whatever. But it's a powerful book.
Thank you. Because, was Dr. A.G. Gaskin one of your mentors? No.
At a distance, yeah, because I read a lot of his books. Obviously, I had the pleasure of living during his lifetime. Never had the pleasure of meeting him, but he managed the bank. He was involved. I understood he passed away at over 100 years of age. I read a lot of books he wrote. I suggest a lot of people and some of the people that get this podcast to read Green Power.
Green Power
is a book he wrote.
Bob Dickerson.
Yeah, he wrote the book Green Power. And there's another book he wrote too. I think The Black Titan. Somebody wrote about him. Yeah. And he had a lot of axioms or theories that are part of all you earn is yours to keep.
Yeah.
Because that's the mentality of the wealthy. Back to my point. That you got to find a way to retain a portion of every dollar or dime that comes to your hands.
Yes. I'm playing a game with myself right now. Okay. And so let me tell you about the game. I haven't told you. I haven't told you about it, but I told my mom about it. Okay. So I opened up this savings account. So we have a couple of savings accounts, but I opened up the savings account and I said, I'm going to see how much money I can save in the savings account. So every time someone sows into me or I something like I just acquire some level of extra reserves after I pay my tithe. I heard that, pay your tithe. Okay, that's a whole nother message for a whole nother day. All right, but after I pay my tithe and I give my offering, pay your tithe, something you owe God. I know y'all may say, well, no, I don't believe in that. That's a whole nother message, but I'm telling you. But anyway, I would take it and just put it in an account. Take it like when I went somewhere and a young lady sold it to me and I just took it and I said, I'm just gonna put all of it in the account. And so I'm just taking it and putting it in an account. So if I pay my tithes, I pay my tithe out of another account because I want all that money to go into that account. Because I just want to see how much can I just save in that account and I don't have the account linked to anything. So no recurring bills come out of it, nothing come out of it.
That's smart.
I just take it and just, now I know that's not the account I invest out of. I just, because I'm playing a game with myself to see how much money can I save in this account if I just do not touch it for no reason at all. I give out of this account. I invest out of this other, not this account, but this account. I invest out of this account. I tithe out of this account. Whatever I do out of this account, but I don't do anything out of this account just to see what can I save.
That's okay.
What are your thoughts on that?
Are you asking me to say something that may impact your direction, or are you asking me to say something just as a suggestion, or are you asking me as a third prong of
that is a good question?
Are you asking me to just to challenge you on this podcast? Because I don't want to do that publicly. If that was because I think that and I'm always when I have the pleasure, opportunity, chance to pour, share, or give suggestions, I say
yeah.
to people all the time, I say, what hat am I wearing while we're talking?
I would
Tell
love
me.
to be challenged.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And maybe this is not the right forum on this podcast to challenge you. And maybe you don't want me to challenge you on this podcast
Absolutely.
but no, I mean, it's very humble for you to suggest that. But I may take this conversation in a direction you maybe feel a little bit,
well,
put out by. So I want to be very cautious with that. We'll take that up private because there's a high level of confidentiality you and I have, and I think we need to keep it that way on certain levels.
Okay,
but
that's fine.
let me just keep it to
Okay.
answering your question. So tell me what you want me to respond to based on what you told me.
Well, let me say this. I respect the fact that you want to keep it private. That's cool. But I'm a very transparent person.
No, I know, right.
So if you challenge me and I get to like a roadblock and I just be like, oh, well, I can't answer that question right now, but just give me some time to answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
I will definitely answer. I'm kind of like, he probably gonna ask me like, why are you not investing that money? Why are you not putting that money in the market? Or why are you not, whatever the case may be. Why is this money just sitting in the bank making 0.0000001% versus you putting this money somewhere where it's gonna actually create babies for you? I'm not sure.
Hey, I'm just listening to your scenario.
Like, but anyway, we're gonna talk offline.
Okay,
but,
right. Okay.
All right, so let's talk about something else. Okay. I just walked into something and like, okay, I just love you.
I love you too.
Let's go. We met how long ago? Bob Dickerson is the one that connected us.
Correct.
And that was in 2012.
Yes.
Wow.
That's right. 13 years ago.
13 years
Doesn't
ago.
seem like it. Seems like yesterday.
Yeah, it seems like yesterday. Well, okay. All right, what else do you want to talk about?
I'm here to answer your questions. I'm not here.
I asked that question and I just was like, okay. I'm having people say, okay, so what did he say? What advice did he give you? All right. I just thought it was a good game to play, but I see now I'm about to pivot real quick.
Do you think managing money is a game?
I don't think it's a game as in like haha game. I think it's it's almost like if you invest in the stock market or you invest in cryptocurrency and not a game in I'm just going to throw money in without thinking or throw money in without evaluating this stock or this digital currency before I actually invest. So not a game like that, not a game to lose money. So maybe I'm using the wrong word.
I believe that it's a misnomer or misconception to ever think in terms of money
as a game.
Yeah, it's not a game.
Okay, well, it's not a game.
I don't want to
it's not a
correct
game.
you here again. I'm just trying. I'm gonna stay within the borders.
I'm not playing the game anymore. I'm out of the
game. We bought a house, a very distressed house, and when I had my team go in and clean the house out, in the attic, there was this game. Seriously, it was called. It's in my office, and I'm trying to think of the name of it, but it's a game, and it says the Black Community Game. Yeah, so I traced to find out some Jews and Italians own the house. No disparaging to Jews or Italians because I have a lot of friends that Jews and Italians. But it was in the attic of a house that was owned, and I think they maybe moved away years ago and maybe it went through 2 ownership changes.
Yeah.
And it may have been minorities who had it when we acquired it through the means by which we acquired it. But I have the game in my house. I mean, in my office, my law office right now. And I'll be glad to show it to you if you remind me.
Yeah.
And the game talks about situational currency.
Okay.
And I said, there's some value to this understanding in this game because what it was always putting people in a position of a deficit in a situation where they were always in a deficit, where the scenario was poverty. See, I'm shifting now from poor being a mindset to poverty being an environment. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, the projects is it's a project of poverty.
Yeah.
Now you're getting into cycles.
Yeah.
See, now you're talking about an environment that is not only with poor people in their thinking that think lack, but where poverty is a culture.
It's a culture.
See, now we're in the second stage of what we're talking about. Correct. You normalize lacking. You normalize having no money. You normalize renting things, not owning anything. You normalize it. Therefore, you legitimate it. So now you're in an environment of poverty. Because the mentality now, watch this, has converted into an environment. It is the thoughts have manifested itself into the environment.
That's good. Yeah. I've never heard of that game before.
Yeah. And so it talks about situational currency, and you pull a card and it'll say like, okay, if your bills are X number of dollars a month, say $600 a month, and you only got $350, what do? Buy a pair of rims? Yeah, it asks these kind of questions on the little cue cards. Yeah. Buy a pair of rims, not pay your power bill. It'll have these things that people would literally, I guess, when playing the game, would select what further deficit they would choose. I'll show it to you.
What's the game by Robert Kiyosaki?
Rich Dad Poor Dad. Rich Dad Poor Dad. He wrote a book about it, and he has a game with a game.
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Getting out of the rat race.
Yeah.
I have it at home.
Yeah. Right.
Brandon Brooks.
He talks about that a lot.
Yeah. Right. So, but that game teaches you how to get out of the rat race.
Ideally. Yeah. But it uses so much debt on the front end to do it. It still keeps you in a hamster wheel. Because it doesn't exit you. The game doesn't teach you how to exit that transaction.
Yeah.
It teaches you how to continue to carry debt into a cycle to leverage into another transaction.
Yeah.
Hence, therefore, increasing the back end of the debt rotation.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't really focus on getting you in an exit strategy.
Maybe you need to create a game.
I don't know.
I know you're not gonna do nothing the Holy Spirit don't tell you to do.
I try not to. And I get in trouble sometimes. I do what he say, but I was saying Wednesday Bible, that's not my fault. If
that
I
would be
God,
good. That would be good to create a game that shows people how to, even if they have to use debt to leverage, and then but have a mindset
that
you're borrowing
exit that transaction.
Yeah, you're borrowing with the mindset I'm going to exit this transaction, but
with
not I'm just
debt,
going to continue.
Correct.
And then leave this on my family if I die, when I die.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. Because I think Robert Kiyosaki, last time I checked on something, he's into the multiplied hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. And he's in his 70s. Wow. Yeah. I mean, he has a lot of cash flow.
Yeah.
But a lot of his real estate is very highly leveraged. By debt. Yeah.
Think about a game.
Right. That's what I said. So sometimes I don't think cash flow is king, in that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. This is good. I'm not gonna say you rebuke me.
No, I don't want to seem like I'm speaking to you sharp.
But I won't say game no more.
I'm saying in the sense that that can sometimes become a conundrum. Like we play games, we like games, sporting games, basketball games, as if we're competing. There's some competition. Yeah. And what I'm saying with money, you're not trying to compete against yourself with money.
I think
you see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I was just looking at it like it was just fun to me.
No, I understand. Okay. Right. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, you're saying like it was in a sense of jovial experience. Yeah. Like, it's fun. It's a game. I get it. Yeah.
Would you like it? I love it. Nephew, you hear this? Well, I'm just so grateful that you're on the podcast. I just, it's not every day that you meet someone of value. This is why you have to honor and steward relationships well.
That's good.
You understand? Because God can divinely connect you relationships. And if you don't steward the relationships well, you can abort something that could have grown and to be so fruitful. You know what I'm saying? And so, because I remember you and I, we met. You blessed me by coming to and being, speaking at the conference.
Yes.
And then I think a couple of years we separated and did not communicate. And then we came back together. And then I found out you hosted a Bible study that you've been hosting over 20 years.
Yes.
And every Wednesday at 11 o'clock, if you're in the Birmingham area and Inslee, I invite you to come to the Truth Bible Study. You want to give the address to the Bible study?
410 19th Street.
410 19th Street, Inslee.
That's right.
Okay. Every Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Yes.
So, and it's just it has been a tremendous blessing. And I've been coming to the Bible study on Wednesdays, and it's kingdom, and it's not just a monologue, it's a dialogue.
Right.
It is rich. The Lord really, really uses you. And I just really bless the Lord for you. So any closing remarks to the people?
Well, I'll say this too, and I just want to kind of further extend the thought on the question you asked, is that what's the difference between poor and poverty? And, like I said, poor may be a season of someone's life, which is a season of a mindset. but you can come out of poverty through shifting your mindset,
Yeah.
especially when you come out of it, not only the mentality, but out of an environment where poverty is
Yeah.
very sociably acceptable,
Yeah.
where lack, deficiency, dilapidation is very socially acceptable. And it takes a strong mentality to go into that kind of environment, to work in that environment, and to elevate that
Yeah,
environment,
yeah,
because you know what you're dealing with. You're
Yeah.
dealing with dilapidation, distressed properties, or rundown community, or
Mhm.
the mentality of people. You know that, but that's why it's so important to have kingdom in its dynamic, in its workings,
Yeah.
not just in conversation,
Yeah.
but because you're literally in those elements.
Yes.
You're literally in those communities and in the relationships with people that may have those thought processes,
Mhm.
and you have to help them, as well as protect yourself, not to be consumed by it,
Yeah.
but to help elevate people's thinking in those environments, or even outside of those environments. It doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily mean it's got to be in an inner city
Mhm.
or even a wealthy place.
Mhm.
Sometimes, you know, you can have very nice neighborhoods and people still have a mentality as far as poor.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and what I mean when I say being in a well established neighborhood, a nice neighborhood, as we would say, a upper class neighborhood, but there can still be poor people among you.
Yeah.
And it usually presents itself somewhat differently. And it's the way they maintain things, or the way they fail to maintain things, whether it be the lawn, parking on the lawn, or where they maintain the cars, where they maintain themselves, where they maintain their children. But the neighborhood is nice,
Yeah.
but it hasn't fully come into a place of poverty, because you can see so subtle and slow signs that poverty is starting to be demonstrated through people's actions because of
Actions.
how they're thinking.
That's right.
They're not
That's
cutting
right.
the grass, not manicuring the grass. And those are just small telltale signs that poverty is trying to take root in an environment.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, in retrospect, until a person has a higher proclivity to develop intrinsic values, which is, I got to take care of myself first, physically, mentally, emotionally. I take care of my body, take care of my mind, take care of, manage my money, you know, manage my family, my children, whatever that is God's giving you.
Mhm.
And then I can extend outside of that to extrinsic values. And that's what I was saying earlier. Sometimes people that are poor in their thinking, they're out of balance into extrinsic values, which are things that are superficial. As long as I just paint the picture, make it look like I got this going on, I can be okay with that. But ain't nothing really going on, but I just make people think that. That's an extrinsic value, but that proceeds out of a mentality of someone that's poor. Where someone that's wealthy says, look, I'm not trying to impress you.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't have to try to impress you. I got it, and I need to make you think I got it or don't have it. I just know I'm okay. But that's why I was meaning to say that poverty is really is deeply embedded in people's subconscious. And until they can get into some honest dialogue about it or be challenged by it, they never really will unearth that those variations between them being too heavily focused on extrinsic values, like where do people think I live versus really what I can afford, where they think I drive versus what they think I should be driving. You know, it's like those are just superficial things, but intrinsic values are typically things wealthy people focus on, which is I can own something and I don't have to walk around with it.
Yeah.
I
don't have nothing to prove.
I don't have nothing to prove. I don't have to talk about my stock portfolio. I don't talk about how many millions or how many thousands of cars or buildings. I don't have to make that a lead in my interaction with people. But for those that focus on intrinsic values, they know he ain't got to talk about it. He got it. They got it.
That's
you know, I don't talk about I work out.
Yeah.
Some things should be obvious.
Yeah.
You know, or whatever that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so some things when we're intrinsically geared, that's where wealthy people should or ideally focus their attention or time is I'm gonna invest on things that are intrinsic, internal. And it'll make an external impact, but I'm not going to focus on external and then hope it change me on the inside. That's not the way it works.
That is so good. Thank you for joining
You're
us
welcome.
on the
Thank
Rise of Bill.
Thank
you have blessed me this day.
No, you're so
You know what I'm saying? And I look forward to, you talking to me all It's going to be good right here. Nephew, it's going to be good. Look at nephew. You're like, uh-oh, you in trouble. But listen, thank you all for joining us today for another episode of Rise and Bill. Please comment below. Let me know at least one thing that you took away from today's podcast. I'm excited that you joined us. If you're not already subscribed, make sure that you subscribe, like, and share, and join us next week for another episode of Rise and Bill. God bless.